Welcome to the Franklin County Varsity Sports Report, the only show that provides you with the best insight and information to everything Franklin County sports. And now here's your host, Bobby C.
Hello and welcome to the Franklin County Varsity Sports Report. I'm Bobby C. Want to welcome you here today. So excited to be able to talk about our sports of what happened last week. A lot of exciting news. A couple of teams have already qualified for playoffs already. So very excited about how things are turning out this fall. Want to thank the Four Leaf Clover Restaurant, also Hubie's Tavern and Restaurant, Avenue Way in Turners Falls, Lisa Albert of Albert Hearing Services, 33 Riddell Street in Greenfield, and by Denny's Pantry on Berniston Road in Greenfield. Also a big thank you to Allie Murphy and also to Philippe Simone. They are the folks that are behind this wonderful production today. Why don't we get things started? Well, last Monday, it was a big win for the Frontier boys soccer team, a win that they really needed, and they picked up the 2-1 victory over Hampshire Regional. Their head coach, Evan Horton, pretty much said that he told them before the game that this needs to be important to you. What he said to his club is that sitting here with a record where we started off our first 5 games very flat, we need to turn things around, and this is the time to get it done. Well, the kids listened to their coach, and they ended up picking up the 2-1 victory. Connor Wakus got the Red Hawks on the board in the 7th minute as he scored a nice corner kick. That was also assisted by Avery Tuttle. Austin Bush evened up the score for Hampshire to make it 1-1, and then it looked nice because Tenzin ended up picking up a goal for Frontier in the 66th minute, and they picked up a hard-fought 2-1 win over Hampshire Regional. Nick Jarvis ended up with only 5 saves on the day. That means that the defense did their job. Mohawk ends up with a 1-1 tie with Smith Vocational. The Vikings ended up scoring in the 72nd minute to force the 1-1 tie. But I will say that in the 28th minute, it ended up being a nice job done by Tyler Dubriel as he ends up getting them on the board. Ruben Bassett ended up with 15 assists and 15 saves, that is, on the day for Mohawk. Sabas picks up an 8-2 win over Greenfield in boys soccer. A tough day again for the Green Wave. Caleb Duncan and Alex Carballo ended up with goals for Greenfield. Ricardo Romero ended up picking up an assist in the loss. The Wave gets beat by Sabas 8-2 in soccer on Monday. Well, the Thunder, they ended up getting edged in the 5-setter as they ended up going up against East Long Meadow in volleyball. Ended up losing the first one, 27-29. They ended up winning the second set, 25-21, won the third set 25-20, lost the second set 20-25, and then they ended up losing the third. But really, I got to tell you, mistakes ended up being the problem in this one, and even their coach, Kelly Lamatanian, pretty much said that that's what gets us in trouble, is when we start making mistakes. You know, we missed too many serves, she said. She says the team missed 5 of them in the 5th frame. And that was a momentum change. In this one, Dabney Rollins led Turners Falls' offense. She ended up having 12 kills along with 5 aces and a block. Setter Haley Bogus ended up with 19 assists as well as 3 kills and an ace. Maddie Lamatadian ends up with 6 kills and 2 aces. Taylor Green with 4 kills, 3 aces and 3 assists. They were the key contributors in this one. Lindsey Whiteman also paced the back row with 7 digs and a pair of aces. It was a tough loss for the Thunder. Well, Franklin County Tech ends up continuing their winning ways. They have done very well in volleyball. Really tough start, but these girls are doing well. They beat Smith Vocational. Final score was 3-1. Kelly Trudeau ended up putting down 6 kills, and the host, Franklin County Tech, showed some good flashes offensively to pick up their 4th consecutive victory as of last Monday. They end up winning once again 3-1 and a nice job by them. After losing the first set 17-25, they won the second, third, and fourth, and it turned out to be the big win they needed. The offense is really starting to click, according to their head coach. He also says that it's been a really nice boost in morale on this team, too. That's the key in high school sports here, folks, is getting the team to all buy in and to really support each other and to have good morale. Because when you have that, you have a really good opportunity to be able to go far, especially in upcoming tournament play. You know, you look at some of the bigger teams that we've had that have done well over the years. You know, you look at the volleyball team at Frontier. You look at the softball team at Turners Falls High School and how they've been able to do so well year after year after year. Well, that's because of how well the team ends up playing together. And really, morale is huge. And right now, the Tech girls are doing a wonderful job in volleyball, and they are on a roll. Trudeau added 2 aces and 3 digs in this one. Also, Faith Smith added 4 kills to go with 2 assists and 2 blocks. Lillian Poirier ended up dishing out 7 assists. She also had 3 aces, a kill, and a dig. And it's nice to see these girls playing so well right now. Also in field hockey, it was Katie Wozniak. Yes, she didn't know that she was going to be starting in the net for Turners Falls in field hockey, but last Monday, she ended up going in because Haley Green was under the weather with an illness. Wozniak did her job. Hey, it was a 1-1 tie with the Amherst Hurricanes. Nice job because Paige Schulda ended up getting her first goal. Congratulations goes out to her. Also, a nice assist from Bryn Tila. They ended up with that lone goal for Turners. Once again, it was a 1-1 tie with Amherst. Well, it was Smith Academy with a 5-1 victory over the Franklin County Tech girls. They end up getting beaten this one. The Eagles, a little bit of struggling going on in field hockey this year. I will say this, though, that Logan Addison ended up tallying with 17 minutes remaining in the second half. Also, Kylie Ballino ended up with 12 saves for the Franklin County Tech School. I tell you right now, that team from Smith Academy is not a bad program. They are pretty good, and they did pick up that win against the Tech 5-1 on Monday. Well, Turners Falls, their golf team earned a win in the 2nd through 6th spots and picked up a 20.5 to 3.5 victory over Smith Academy. Yes, they did a nice job over at Thomas Memorial Golf and Country Club. Joey Mosca ends up doing well at the number 1 spot. He shot a 39. Brian Poirier ends up winning the number 2 spot with a 47. Aiden Bailey, the number 3 spot with a 48. Jeremy Kovalsik ended up winning the 4th match with a 57. Well, for a few minutes of Monday's game against Pioneer Valley Regional, the Mohawk Trail field hockey team found itself in a very defensive game. But the visiting Panthers started fast, and they started generating opportunities, and all of a sudden, they end up picking up the win. Final score was 4-0. You know, they really started to turn things around. Things got better for that team, and they ended up picking up a victory that they needed. So a nice win by them. Congratulations goes out to Pioneer picking up that victory. Also, want you to know that Athena Shaw ended up with 5 saves for the Panthers. Well, want to welcome you to the Franklin County Varsity Sports Report. I'm Bobby C. We got a lot of action that happened this past week. I also want to say a big thank you to the 4-Leaf Clover Restaurant, Hubie's Tavern and Restaurant, Avenue A in Turners Falls, Lisa Albert of Albert Hearing Services, 33 Riddell Street in Greenfield, and by Denny's Pantry on Burniston Road in Greenfield. Well, on Tuesday, it was cross country, and it turned out to be a big match between Frontier and Greenfield, and that has been one that people have been talking about in boys cross country. Well, it turned out that it was an easy win for Frontier. They had no problem as they end up beating up on the Wave 21-35. The Red Hawks, undefeated in league play, 6-1 overall, got a first place finish by Garrick Brinda. He ended up with a time of 15 minutes and 36 seconds. Andy Bostrom ended up placing second for Greenfield. He ended up with a time of 16 minutes and 10 seconds. Tell you, the Wave's still doing well. They're 7-2 and 3-1 in league play with that loss to Frontier. Frontier also had the next top two finishers with Brett Robinson. He ended up in third at a time of 16 minutes and 27 seconds. Patrick Boyden ended up with a time of 16 minutes and 30 seconds. Eric Badillo of Greenfield rounded out the top five with a time of 16 minutes and 42 seconds. On the girls' side, the Red Hawks ended up besting Greenfield. It was 21-33. Abigail Howard ended up being the leader in this one as she beat out Candice Liu for the top finish. She ends up with a time of 19 minutes and 21 seconds, and Liu ended up with a time of 19 minutes and 28 seconds. Leah Gump ended up with a time of 19 minutes and 36 seconds. Sadie Ross with a time of 19 minutes and 45 seconds for Frontier. 6-1 as of last Tuesday, 2-1 in league play. They ended up crossing the finish line third and fourth. I can tell you that Eva Heath was fifth for the Wave. She had a time of 19 minutes and 53 seconds. Well, that girls team over at Frontier has had a very good season in field hockey, and I can tell you that Olivia Vasilio ends up netting the game winner for the Hawks as they picked up a 2-1 win over Agawam last Tuesday. She ended up scoring with 7 minutes and 32 seconds left in the game. That was enough for the win. And Lily Spencer assisted on Vasilio's goal. Also, Allison Barnes also scored for Frontier, assisted by Emily DeMeo. And Skylar Beniski ended up with 10 saves for the Frontier Lady Red Hawks. Well, Minnechaug picked up a 3-0 win over Greenfield last Tuesday in field hockey. And it turned out to be a game that really the Wave sort of got dominated in this one. But it ended up being that Ainsley Flynn made 6 saves in goal for the Wave in this one. Once again, they got beat last week to Minnechaug, 3-0. Well, that Franklin County Tech boys golf team is pretty good, and they end up winning. They stay unbeaten as of last week, and they were a winner over Westfield Tech. Final was 18-6, and Mike McGoldrick ended up with a 39 as the medalist in this one. He ends up winning his to pick up 4 points. Also, Alex Sulda ended up with a 43, Anthony Zager with a 46, Jacob Shaw with a 44, Nathan Skiandra with a 52. They all picked up wins, and yes, as of last Tuesday, that team, 8-0 on the year, they are going to postseason play. The Frontier cross-country team is in. So isn't the Greenfield cross-country team. They're in. This is pretty cool. Things are really starting to happen with our locals as they get ready for tournament time this early in the season. Frontier picked up another win. They're going to tournament as well in golf. They're undefeated on the season. They end up beating Palmer 19.5 to 5.5. Kyle Maynard ended up picking up the medalist honors in this one, and they win over at Cherry Hill. Nice win for them. Maynard, by the way, he ended up with a 37, and he picked himself up 4 points for his team. Mikey Kordoff ended up shooting a 42. He did well. Gunnar Moore, also Brian Bauman, Porter Clancy, and Rowan Blair round out Frontier's winners in this one. East Hampton picked up a win 14.5 to 9.5 over Greenfield, as Greenfield has fell to 5-3. They have been struggling after a really good start on the year. The Green Wave, they are missing, no doubt, Ryan Cody. They could really use him right now. But Danny Provost had the lowest round for the Wave. He had a 45, and he ended up picking up 4 points for his team. Dylan Archer ended up winning at number 3. He had a 42. Once again, it was East Hampton with the win, 14.5 to 9.5. Turners Falls picking up another victory last week in golf. They beat St. Mary's 13-11. Aiden Bailey ended up being the low medalist in this one with a 41. Joey Mosca, he ended up getting some points, as well as Brian Poirier. They end up getting points, and Jeremy Kowalczyk ends up winning, and he had a 55. Vinny Carmi ended up with a 62 and won his match as well. It was a nice victory for Turners as they picked up 2 wins as of last week in Tuesday's match and winning on Monday. In girls soccer, it was Athol shutting out the Franklin County Tech. They win easy 6-0. Kaylin McClure ended up with 3 saves for the Eagles in girls soccer. Ware ends up beating Greenfield. They really found out what a good team this Ware team is, and they get beat 4-1. I will tell you that Dina Samaki ended up with 10 saves for the Wave, and it was a tough one, but Christina Reed got that first goal for Greenfield in the first half, assisted by Emma Savoy. East Hampton with an easy win over Frontier Girls. That was in girls soccer. They won 10-0. And I will say that Emily Rao ends up with 13 saves in the net for Mohawk. So think about this. If she had 13 saves and they scored 10, that means there was 23 shots on net. Very big win for East Hampton. Well, in volleyball, it was Mahar beating Greenfield. They end up winning that one 3-1. Here's how it went. They end up winning the first set 25-10. They lost to Greenfield 16-25 in game 2. Game 3, 25-11 they win, and they win 25-7 in game 4. Turned out to be a nice win for them. For the Wave, I can say that Corian Callahan ended up with 5 kills, 3 aces and 2 blocks. Also, Gianna Conti had 4 digs, 6 aces, and Cassie Matty ended up with 7 kills and 4 aces for the Wave. Well, in girls soccer, it ended up being a soccer match that was between Frontier and the ladies up at Pioneer. Final score with the Redhawks, they end up winning this one 4-0 over Pioneer. You know, it turned out to be a big win for them because they needed to sort of keep that spark going down there in South Deerfield. Frontier found the back of the net on the 19th minute as Natalie Denkowitz ended up setting a ball into the box of the corner where sophomore Caitlin Mackin ended up hammering it home for the first goal in this one. Well, then the Redhawks struck again, and they ended up doing it just a couple of minutes before halftime, where Michaela Santos ended up finding Denkowitz, who ended up cutting to the net, and it was 2-0. Well, trying to get that deficit down to where it was, believe it or not, they ended up scoring a third goal right before halftime. Denkowitz set the ball up to Jessica Risley, and yes, they beat a pair of defenders in this one, and they're now up 3-0. They end up scoring again with their 4th goal 6 minutes into the second half. That's when Risley ended up finding Denkowitz. They pick up the 4-0 win over Pioneer. Want to welcome you to the Franklin County Varsity Sports Report. I'm Bobby C. We get together each and every week. We talk local sports, all the 6 varsity schools that we have here in Franklin County. And I just want to say that it's been a very good fall season for us. We have really good teams here in our area for fall sports. We always seem to do well. You know, we're very fortunate because we have very good cross-country teams. We have very good golf teams. We honestly are getting so much better at a couple of our other schools that are doing well, especially in field hockey. We've been very dominant over the years with Frontier and Greenfield. This year, Turner's Falls is in the mix as well, hoping to get to postseason play. You also have the volleyball team over at Turner's. You know, Turner's volleyball, they were looking for players at the beginning of the season. Hey, they're holding their own right now. And of course, we all know about how things are going down there at Frontier. They always bring the guns under Coach Sean McDonald. Want to say a big thank you to all of our wonderful underwriters that help us out each and every week. They've been with us since the beginning, 3.5 years ago. The 4-Leaf Clover Restaurant, also Denny's Pantry, Lisa Albert of Albert Hearing Services, and also our friend Sean Hubert of Hubie's Tavern and Restaurant, Avenue A in Turner's Falls. Well, on Wednesday of last week, it was a big day for Connor Wakis as he picked up a hat trick, and Frontier keeps rolling. After a shaky start, they are off and running, and they picked up the win. It was a 3-2 win over Palmer. You know, this kid ended up scoring the 10th minute, the 15th minute, and the 50th minute in this game. All of a sudden, Frontier climbing back into things, and they are looking to get to postseason play. They weren't so sure. Things weren't looking very good for them in the beginning of the year. They ended up having a 5-game losing streak They also took on some of the biggest powers in the area, don't get me wrong. So now things are really starting to heat up for this team. You know, you start talking to Evan Horton, and he'll tell you this. He'll say, listen, it's very rare to see a kid who really could take the whole team on his back, and that's exactly what Connor did. And for us to pick up that 3-2 victory was big for our program. Also, Tenzin ended up assisting on 2 of Wakas's goals. Avery Tuttle ended up earning an assist as well. Nick Jarvis made 6 saves, including 2 big stops that kept Frontier in front in this one. Gateway, they end up beating Mohawk in boys soccer. Final was 3-0, but Ruben Bassett, 17 saves in this one for Mohawk. So they got peppered hard by Gateway. In field hockey, turns out to be the Fuller sends the Panthers past Mahar. That's right, a big day for Jenny Fuller. And she ends up getting the lone goal in this one as Pioneer picked up the 1-0 victory in field hockey. It was a game that this team needed. Mohawk Trail with a win over Palmer, 7-1. A dominant effort that was done because the Warriors did a nice job being able to pepper the net. And that's exactly what they did on Wednesday. Tell you that Mila Schur ends up with 3 goals to lead the way. Stella Clark, also Courtney Allen, Lexi Williams, and Katie Silva all tallied in this one. LaSure, also Clark, and Isis Moon had assists to help jumpstart the offense in this one. Turner's Falls ended up playing Belchertown in field hockey last week. It was a 1-1 tie. Paige Schulda ends up scoring the team's lone goal. And I will say that Paige has done pretty well for her team this year. They settled for the 1-1 tie with Belchertown after a scoreless first half. Schulda ended up tallying to give the Powertown the 1-0 lead, 22 minutes and 19 seconds remaining in regulation, but Belchertown ended up tying the game with 11:29 left in the game, and that's where it ended. Can tell you, though, that Haley Green ended up with 8 saves for Turners, and they ended up holding an 11-9 lead in corners in this one. Turned out to be a tough one. The Turners was looking for that victory, but they end up with a 1-1 tie. That ended up being their second tie of the week. Well, Southwick ends up taking on the Franklin County Tech School in field hockey, and it was Southwick with the 4-1 victory. Logan Addison ended up with the lone goal for the Eagles as they get beaten this one. Also, Kylie Boleno ended up with 16 saves for the Tech School. She did a nice job in the net. Franklin County Tech rolls on as they have found their groove, and I will tell you, they have done an awesome job in volleyball. I am very impressed with this team right now. After dropping its first 6 matches of the year, guess what, folks? The Franklin County Tech girls have won 5 in a row with a 3-0 win over Commerce. They end up winning Game 1, 25-14. They win Game 2, 25-13. And they win Game 3, 25-13. Kelly Trudeau led the way with 7 aces and 3 digs, also 2 kills. Emily Ryan ends up with 5 kills and 2 aces. Maggie Carlton ends up with 3 aces, 2 digs, 6 kills, and 2 assists for the Tech School. Athol ends up beating Mohawk Trail in girls volleyball. It was 3-0. Mohawk loses the first game 25-22, second game 25-17, and the third game 25-14. For Mohawk, Claire Wezaleski ends up with 5 assists, 3 digs. Also, Cassidy Upton ends up with 5 kills and assists and 7 digs, as well as 2 aces. Hannah Plesner ends up with 7 digs, an ace. Also, Bloomer ends up with a kill and assist, 5 digs, and 5 aces for Mohawk in the loss. Also was Belchertown beating Pioneer in girls volleyball. Final was 3-0. Pioneer loses the first one, 25-14, lose the second game, 25-9, and then lose the third game, 25-17. Abby Briggs ends up with 4 aces. Also, Olivia Hammond ends up with 2 aces, and Natalie Rowan ends up with an ace in the loss for Pioneer. Well, the Wave ends up continuing a victory that they really needed in boys golf as they end up winning 17-7 over St. Mary's this past Wednesday. They end up with that nice win they needed. Dylan Archer ends up setting the tone. He shot a 48, picks up 4 points for his team. Danny Provost with a 54 ends up with 3.5 points. Hunter Roberts ends up with a 50. He picks up 3 points. Chris Postrom with a 55 picks up 4 points. They all played well, and the Wave picked up the victory. Gabe LaRoche had the low round for Greenfield at the #1 spot. He ended up with a 44, and Jake Cody ended up with a 59 at #2. In cross country, it was the Mohawk Warriors as they end up winning their match against Southwick, and they also ended up beating Pioneer. I will tell you, they ended up sweeping that tri-meet, and that girls cross country team is pretty good over at Mohawk. I will tell you, they are on a roll right now, and a congratulations goes out to them. You know, on the boys' side, they are doing pretty well too. I'll tell you a kid who's done really well for Pioneer, and you're not hearing much about any of the other kids on the Pioneer team except for this guy, and that is Noah DeRuiter. Noah DeRuiter ends up with a second-place finish for Pioneer out of all of those kids that have been able to come around here in the area for cross country. This kid seems to be in the top 5 for Pioneer every single match. Every meet that they've had, he has been there. Great job by Noah DeRuiter. He ends up with a second-place finish in this one with a time of 20 minutes and 23 seconds. Also, a couple of other kids from Mohawk did well too. Sean O'Day ends up in there, as well as Quinton Romer. Also, Vincent Gothier did well for the Warriors. I got to tell you, got to give credit where credit's due. That kid has done an excellent job over there at Pioneer in Noah DeRuiter. Well, in golf, back on Wednesday, it was Frontier continuing their unbeaten streak. They are on a roll. They win big over Chicopee Comp, 23-1. These kids are really playing amazing golf right now. Mikey Kordoff ended up with a 35 at the #1 spot as the medalist of the day. He gets all 4 of his points. Also, many of these other kids keep getting it done too. You know, when you really think about a kid like Kordoff, he really has said it the best. He said, for me personally, I haven't really been playing as well as I can play. I think I could do much better. And even though I have been inconsistent this year, the rest of the team has been able to pick up the pieces. And how true is that? Because this team is just dominating each and every week. You know, there's other kids that have been able to get it done. How about this 8th grader? This kid is amazing on this golf team in Gunnar Moore. You know, he shot a 36. I mean, this kid is really good, man. Got a lot of respect for this Gunnar Moore. To me, this kid right now is the best young golfer that we have in our area. He has a very bright future. Remember, Gunnar Moore from Frontier Golf, he is only an 8th grader. You know, the kids have all matured well. Brian Bauman ends up picking up a victory. Porter Clancy ends up picking 3.5 points. Also, Ronan Blair just keeps going. And the depth on this team is just incredible. Yes, it's the Franklin County Varsity Sports Report, and I'm Bobby C. There's a lot of things that have happened this past week. A lot of teams have already made postseason play, and we're sitting here not even in the 2nd week of October. That's how things have really happened for some of these teams. You know, when you're undefeated in golf, I guess it's an easy way for you to be able to make playoffs, right? And that's exactly what's going on right now with the Franklin County Tech boys and the Frontier boys as they continue their unbeaten ways. And they've done a nice job at that too. As we continue into Thursday, we want to let you know that it ended up being a nice win for the guys from Athol as they knocked off Greenfield in boys soccer. Final score was 2-1. And they were without their best player too. I will tell you that the combination of Caleb Duncan and Dante Ruggiano, they did able to get on the board on the 17th minute to give Greenfield the chance in this one, but they had a couple of opportunities to try to tie it up. They weren't able to get it done, though. Athol escapes with the 2-1 win over Greenfield. And Alex Carballo ends up with 8 saves for the Wave. Their team struggling, but they're very young. They are 1-7 on the year as of last Thursday. Also, it was the Pioneer boys as they end up in a soccer match with Savas. And 66 minutes, it was Pioneer's defense that held Savas International off the board. But boy, they came up short in this one as Savas picked up the 2-0 victory. A little bit of a struggle this year for Pioneer boys as of last Thursday. They were 2-5-2 on the year, 2-3-2 in league play. Ryan Potter ended up with 11 saves. Well, as that golf team from the Franklin County Tech School continued their winning ways on Thursday, they end up sweeping their tri-meet. They end up winning. They end up knocking off Mohawk in an easy win. It was 23-1, and they also ended up beating Turner's Falls 17.5 to 6.5. And I'll tell you right now, the Thunder is also starting to get better as well. They end up beating Mohawk in that tri-meet 20-4. Well, Mike McGoldrick, he ended up taking the medalist honors in this one with a round of a 40 as he continues his hot play. Also, he ended up capturing 6 of his 8 possible points between his 2 matches. And the Eagles improve to 11-0 on the season under their coach, Sean Knightley. Joey Mosca ended up having the team's lowest score for Turners with a 41. He ended up getting 4 of his 8 points at the number 1 spot. Ben Thompson had a nice day for Mohawk. He shot a 42. He won 2 points for his team. Other 4 golfers that looked good that broke the 50 mark for the Franklin County Tech were Jacob Shaw, Ryan Artis. Also in there was Anthony Zager and Alex Sulda. They ended up all getting under a 50. Aiden Bailey had a 44, picked up 6 points for the Thunder, while teammate Brian Poirier posted a round of a 50, and he won 4 of his 8 points for the Thunder in this tri-meet. So the Tech continues their winning ways in boys golf. In girls soccer, it ended up being a really good game, and it turned out to be a big one for Frontier as the Lady Redhawks pick up a 3-2 win over Southwick. Elena Poland ended up receiving a pass from Jess Risley, and yes, she broke it in, and she was able to score the winning goal in the 70th minute as they picked up the victory. Right now, Frontier, as of last Thursday, their girls team in soccer was 5-3-1. And you know, they were down in this one and were able to come all the way back. So a nice job for them to be able to pick up that victory that they needed. Also, Michaela Santos ended up scoring in the 47th minute. And Risley also scored in there. I got to tell you, they are a very good team. It's just that they've been on the losing end of a couple, only by a goal or maybe 2. They should be fine when they get into postseason play. Really good team over there in Frontier in girls soccer. Hopkins ends up with a win over Mohawk. That was a tough one for Mohawk as they get beat by Hopkins 5-0. I will tell you that Saffron and also Izzy Palamaso ends up getting the goals that they had for Hopkins, who pick up the victory. Well, the number 1 team in Division I field hockey, excuse me, ended up taking on the Greenfield field hockey team. And I will tell you, it was a 5-0 win for Longmeadow. They are that good. And really, they pretty much dominated this one. They're 9-1 on the year. The Wave, well, they go to 5-4-1 as of last Thursday. And of course, they end up with that score going into a big matchup that they were going to have, which we'll talk about on our show next week. And that was the game between Greenfield and Turners. We'll give you the details on that in our show next week. But I will tell you this, though, that the Wave is only 1 game over 500 as of last Thursday. Girls volleyball, Athol ends up with a win over Mohawk 3-1. Set scores of 25-14, 25-22, 24-26, and then 25-9. Octava Crawford ends up with 6 aces. Cassidy Upton ends up with 5 kills for the Warriors. They are, as of last Thursday, 2-10 on the season. They have been struggling along. Hannah Plesner ended up chipping in with 4 kills and 8 digs for the Mohawk girls. Well, in volleyball, it was Haley Bogus serving up a nice day, and the Turners Falls Thunder pick up a nice win over Greenfield, 3-0 last Thursday. I tell you, Haley Bogus does a nice job as a server, and that's exactly what she did. She was on fire as their team ends up being perfect in league play, 8-0 as of last Thursday. They are going to postseason play. Taylor Green ended up with 5 kills, an ace, 6 assists for Turners, which, by the way, are 9-4 overall. So their out-of-division schedule has been a little on the tough side, and they did struggle a little bit on that. Because think about it, if they're 8-0 in league play, they're still 9-4 overall. That means that they've only won 1 and lost 4 out of their division. Dabney Rollins ended up with 6 kills and 6 aces. Stephanie Peterson put down 10 aces for Greenfield. Corian Callahan ended up with 5 kills, 2 aces. Hannah Malu ended up with 2 kills, a block, and a pair of aces. Gianna Conti ends up with 3 digs and 3 aces for the Wave. So a nice job by the Lady Thunder with their win over Greenfield last Thursday. Final was 3-0. Want to welcome you to the Franklin County Varsity Sports Report. I'm Bobby C. Well, we're down to Friday. That means that our show is winding down because we're down to our final day of action. But it was on the gridiron, as Football Friday is what we like to call it, and it was Greenfield cruising to a big win over Athol. How about this one? 34-0. Wow. You know, there was a couple of big delays in this one because of a couple of injuries that happened in this one. And turned out to be one of those injuries ended up being to a Greenfield player. And I just want to say that it turned out to be very unfortunate because he looked like he ended up having a cheap shot that was coming his way. And unfortunately in that one, he had to go to the hospital as well. And we want to send our best to Ryan Palzari of Greenfield. Hopefully he is going to be able to get on the mend. He is now out for the rest of the season. Kacheski said that the guy who came in and really did a nice job for us after Bob Provost went down with a knee injury, he ended up carving up some nice yards. Shane Kilgore ends up with 19 carries for 139 yards and 2 touchdowns. Provost aggravated a nagging knee surgery injury, I said, that he has been having. He has been really been bothered by this knee injury, and it also got aggravated even more in that game with Athol. You know, the one thing that I can say is that Jared Hart ended up picking up an interception in this one as well. Jake Sack ended up picking up a 1-yard touchdown in the quarterback position. Also, a nice 63-yard drive was a big help in that one. Kilgore had a 1-yard touchdown pass that he ended up catching. He also ran one in. It was a nice day, an easy day for Greenfield as they picked up the 34-0 win over Athol. Mohawk ended up having their booster day over at Bordeaux Field last Friday night. Booster day over in Turners Falls. It was a tough one. All the scoring was done in the first half. Final score was 12-0 McCann Tech. They tried to do everything they possibly could to be able to do something on the offensive end, and unfortunately Mohawk just wasn't able to convert on a lot of plays, and they end up losing to a team that honestly has started off their season very slow, but that was a big win for McCann Tech as they knocked off. At the time, Mohawk was undefeated at 3-0. They are now 3-1. Sean Davenport ended up going 6-19 passing, 38 yards for the Warriors. Cam Lococo ended up catching 3 passes for 33 yards. Really, in this one, McCann Tech ended up dominating. They ended up doing a nice job on the offensive end as they were able to accumulate 186 yards in total offense. that Mohawk team only had 130. Just want to say that was awesome that they ended up having that Booster Day game with the co-op program between Turners and Mohawk to have that game over at Bordeaux Field. Very nice crowd showed up for that one as well. Unfortunately, they came up on the losing end. It was Mohawk getting beaten this one. Final was 12-0. Well, congratulations goes out to a very good player. She is an excellent, and I mean an excellent soccer player over at Mahar Regional. Her name is Delaney Parker. She ended up picking up her 100th career goal, and with that, they picked up a 6-0 win over Pioneer Valley Regional. Also in girls soccer, it was the Frontier team as they ended up beating Pope Francis. Final score was 2-0. Natalie Denkowitz ended up getting both of those goals in this one. All of a sudden, that girls soccer program down there in South Deerfield is 6-3-1 as of last Friday. So congratulations goes out to them. Lee picks up a win over Mohawk 2-0. Here's something that was very unfortunate that happened to this one. There was an injury to the goalie of Mohawk. Emily Rao ended up in the 40th minute getting hurt. They had no subs for their team. They ended up ending the game due to not enough players. How unfortunate is that? Lee picks up the 2-0 win in soccer over Mohawk. Well, in boys soccer, it was the offense that came alive, and yes, it was a big help, and all of a sudden, Pioneer picked up a win, and they ended up beating Cy Tech. So congratulations goes out to them. Their coach, Don Fraser, said it was nice for them to be able to pick up a victory that was well needed, and congratulations on their win. That was a win that this program really needed back on Friday. Mohawk with a 1-0 win over Smith Vogue. And it turned out to be a big goal that ended up happening in the 20th minute. And also, Tyler Dubriel ended up being involved in that as well. Ruben Bassett had 9 saves to preserve the shutout for Mohawk. Franklin County Tech ends up beating Granby. That was in boys soccer, as this kid's been hot this year. Sam Lashtour ends up literally getting another goal. His team right now is 4-4-2 as of last Friday. So really, they are looking to try to get over that 500 mark so that they can get in to postseason play. In field hockey, it was Pioneer and Turners. They ended up with a 0-0 tie. That's right, the Thunder had 4 shots on goal, 9 corners, while the Panthers had 3 corners and 2 shots. Really seemed like a game that didn't really have a lot of action going on there. Haley Green ended up making 1 save for Turners. Athena Shaw ended up with 4 saves in a scoreless contest. Also, it was the Franklin County Tech and Holyoke at a 0-0 tie in field hockey. Belchertown beats Mohawk 2-1 in field hockey on Friday. Also, Mahar ends up beating Pioneer. That was in volleyball on Friday night, and they ended up winning 25-17 in Game 1. They win Game 2, 25-11, and Game 3, 25-13. Lily Phi ends up with 4 aces, 2 kills, and 3 digs. Abby Briggs ends up with 3 aces and a kill. Emily Tibbetts ends up with 2 kills, 2 digs in the loss for the Panthers. Turners continuing their winning ways. They beat Mohawk in volleyball on Friday. Final was 3-0. They win Game 1, 25-11. Game 2, 25-7. Game 3, 25-6. Taylor Green led the way with 8 aces, also 5 assists, 3 kills. All of a sudden, the Thunder now 10-4 as of last Friday, 9-0 in league play. Abby Holloway ended up with 5 aces and 2 kills. Isabel Farrick ends up with 6 kills. Stephanie Peterson with 6 aces and 2 kills. Madison Latatamian ends up with 6 aces and a pair of kills in the win. For Mohawk, it was Emery King ended up with a pair of kills and a dig. Also, Bloomer ends up with 5 digs, 2 aces, and Riley Gerard ends up with 5 digs and 4 aces in the loss. Franklin County Tech girls, well, they got beat. They end up losing in volleyball to a very good Southwick team. And I will say they got beat in this one 3-0. They ended up losing game one, a tough one, 26-24. They lose game two decisively, 25-12. And then they lose game three, 25-23. So two of those three games, they just lost by 2 points. Lillian Poirier ended up with 2 aces and 4 digs and a kill. Also a couple of assists for the Eagles. By the way, they are 3-3 in league play as of last Friday. Renee Reed ended up with 2 aces, 3 digs, and 2 assists in the loss for the Tech School. And the Wave ends up picking up a win in golf on Friday. Yes, they do. It was a nice win for them in a game that they really needed. It turned out to be a close one, too. How about this? It was a 1-point victory for the Wave over the Thunder. Aiden Bailey ended up having the low honors for Turners. He ends up with a 41. Nice job by him. Danny Provost had the low score for Greenfield. He ended up with a 45. Jake Cody and Brian Poirier split the number 2 spots with a 47. Gabe LaRoche, Joey Mosca end up with 49s at the number 1 spot. And by the way, last week, they ended up having the special 2-ball tournament, and there were our teams that were represented. There was the team that was represented from Frontier, there was the team represented by Greenfield, and there was the team that was represented by the Franklin County Tech School. Well, out of all the teams that were represented in this whole tournament, it was the team, the duo, the 2 important guys from good old Frontier, in Mikey Kordoff and Kyle Maynard, and they end up winning the Invitational 2-ball. That's right. They end up winning the trophy, they end up getting the big spotlight, and they ended up being 2 young players who are going to be able to come back to defend that championship next year. You know, you talk to Kordoff, he'll tell you we played pretty well. You know, we kind of grinded. We had a couple of par putts. We had a couple of big shots. How about a nice 50-footer? That's always nice, especially in a time when you needed it. Franklin County Tech ended up having the team of Mike McGoldrick and Alex Sulda. They ended up with a 91, and they finished 23rd in this one. Also, the Greenfield duo of Ryan Cody and Gabe LaRoche, they took 28th place with a 98. Really, there was a lot of teams in this. Frontier, the duo of Maynard and Kordoff, ends up winning that invitational. Congratulations, guys. They have had a wonderful season so far. And there you have it. That's going to do it for us. Another edition of the Franklin County Varsity Sports Report. I'm Bobby C. I want to thank you so much for joining us. Also, Allie Murphy, thank you for being here again today. Also, to our good friend Philippe Simone. You know, Johnny Meisner's also with us, you know, each and every week, too. They do a wonderful job with our production crew. Also, the 4-Leaf Clover Restaurant, Denny's Pantry, also Albert Hearing Services, and Hubie's Tavern and Restaurant have been our underwriters for the last 3.5 years. So until we meet again next week, we want to remind you, get out and support your local athletes. I'm Bobby C., and that'll wrap up another edition of the Franklin County Varsity Sports Report.
Thanks for watching the Franklin County Varsity Sports Report on GCTV. Catch a game and be sure to join us next time for more sports and fun.